Hello again. So we've reached the point now with the guitar where we're going to make a soundboard. So I've got these bits of, in this case it's stick of spruce, two pieces. They're about 5mm thick or thereabouts. So what I'm going to do is to glue them together. So it's exactly the same as when we did the back. Glue them together down the middle, and then we can work on it. We can thin it down and then we can cut out the various shapes that we need. So in this case, the people who supplied it have drawn on the shape where they think the guitar would best fit. And in fact, because there's chunks missing out of this, it probably is the best fit. So first thing to do again is to get that airtight, so that light tight gap. And I can see there's a huge, great big curve in these. So they go in here and out at the corner. So the first thing we're going to do is have to plane that flat. So let's go over to the board. So again, a sheeting board, so essentially just a piece of reasonably thick wood clamped onto the table. I can then stick that on with an overlap, and I can take a plane on its side, because remember the plane is square here, so I've put it on its side. I'll get a nice square edge on there, and I can see where it needs to take some taking off. So I can feel it's taking it off at both ends as I go. So I'll just keep going until I get it flat. I'll tell you it's flat because you get an even cut. Now I can hear it as I cut. It's cutting here. It's cutting here, and it's just missing this bit because obviously the plane's flat and the wood's not. So we'll just keep going until I get a cut all the way along. And that's it. I can hear it wisping all the way along. I can see I've got a nice flat smooth surface. And what I do is take a straight edge like this, and we line it up to the light and see if we've got a nice flat edge, which we pretty much have. Okay, next thing is we do the same to the other one. Here you are with both. So we're now getting a nice joint along there. It should be fairly flat. You can see the circle's not a circle anymore now I've trimmed it off. I'm holding it up to the light again. There's a 2, so you can see through, and I can see that there's pretty good. Yeah, that's pretty good. I'm not getting any light through that joint, so that's actually come out first time. And again, if it wasn't, then you get the plane out and you keep going very carefully. Take away the bits where there's no light, and hopefully it'll slowly come together and you'll get a light tight joint. Now this one has to be absolutely perfect because this is the soundboard. It's going to be on the front of the instrument, and you'll see it. If there's a gap there, you'll see a gap, and you'll forever see that gap and be disappointed. On the back it's not so critical. You can always put a back stripe in if it looks a real nightmare. Plus it's darker, so you can fill it. With the darker woods it's easy to fill. You just get some sawdust and some glue and you can fill the gaps and get away with quite a lot. On the front you can't fill this light coloured wood because it just leaves you with a dark stain. I've tried many times and you can never quite get it right, so the trick is to keep this in really good condition. So ready to join that now, so over to the table. So here we go again, exactly the same as when we did the top. So I've got a piece of wood, and this is what, 5mm to a centimetre sort of thick, and that goes down the middle. And then I will put this in place, line it up, and I'll put nails down here and down here to hold it in place. And then obviously when you whip out the piece of wood, two things go together and they're forced together. So that's the next thing to do. Let's put these nails in. I should say, if you hadn't seen this before, this is just a piece of worktop again. This time I flipped it over so that I can knock nails into it, so I'm knocking the nails into the bottom of it. Okay, that's the nails in. Now what I'm going to do is to mark very lightly mark where all the nails are, and then able to line it back up again once I put the glue in. Of course, when we lift this up, it should be nice and free. So this time, because it's the front and it's a nice light soft wood, I can use just aliphatic glue on this. Plus, it won't show as much as the epoxy might. So, if there's any glue left, good stuff this, but it does run out. Okay, so I'm going to put glue along here. This is the edge we've just cleaned up, all the way along. And then lollipop stick again, just to make sure it's covering the whole surface, because as we thin this down, we don't know exactly which bits we're going to be left with, so it's worth making sure the whole lot is glued properly. And then all we do, bring the two together like that, and then we can jiggle them up and down a bit to make sure the glue spread to both. Line it up, and then we can put it down on here. Now, you can see that I've forgotten to put a bit of paper in, so take some convenient documents that you don't like, and you can put those in the middle, and this is going to stop it sticking to the table like that. There we are. Stick to the wood, to the paper instead. Now what I'm going to do, I'll put them back together again. There we are. Line up with the bits of wood. Line up with the marks, sorry, what I'm talking about. And then we can press it down. You don't actually need the piece of wood in between at this stage. Just line them up and then gently push it down and make sure that it's all down, so make sure it's not riding up on any of these nails, which it tends to do. And if you've done it right, you should find that the glue squeezes out along the middle. So again, I can take a thumb or a clean end of the lollipop stick and just clean that off, a bit less to worry about later. And then we can take some more bits of paper here, put those on there, and then we can clamp it down. So this is the piece of wood I use. It's just a piece of, just a chunk of wood, and I've slightly taken off a little bit here with the plane, so you get a very, very slight curve, and that when I clamp it down, it'll kind of bend itself back sort of flat again. So we line that up, make sure it's lined up with the gap, so that's the bit we're pressing down on, and then you just take a couple of clamps, one either end, and that'll be job done. Clamp it and then leave it overnight. One on there, one on this end. Clamps just about reach. And there we go, a final double check that it's not riding up on the nails. And we can leave that overnight now to dry. So now it's the next day. Been overnight, so let's see what happens. So take the clamps off. With a bit of luck, it hasn't stuck to the table. That's the clamps. Grab a hammer. Nails off. Fingers crossed that it's not attached to the table. And there we are. Seems to be stuck, and then we can take these off. can check the joint. That feels fairly flat, so that's good. Yep, so there we are, one board ready to go. The next thing we're going to do is to thin it down, so it's going to be exactly the same as when we did the back. Plane off both surfaces because you can still see a lot of saw cuts, and this one's particularly rough. So playing it down on both sides and then pick which is the nicest side. Check there aren't any little blemishes, that kind of thing. And pick a nice side, and then we'll do that with a scraper, and then we'll keep that one safe. Now, from here on in, this is a soundboard, and it's made up of some really quite soft wood. You get the slightest little bit of grit or something on your table, you're going to get a scratch in it. So as soon as you've got this nice face, you don't want to get dents and scratches because they will show up in the final thing, and you can't get rid of them. A little dent, maybe sometimes you can get a piece of paper over it and iron it. Sometimes it'll come back again, but generally try not to get dents in it in the first place. So from now on, I'm going to keep any boards that I use meticulously clean, and a lot of times I've got this towel, and I'll tend to put it on the towel so that there's a bit of extra cushion in there to stop it from being damaged. Okay, first things first, let's plane that down a little bit. So, just like last time, I'm going to first of all clean this up. So I'm going to take my plane, and again, at a slight angle, and just start cleaning it up. And see what it's like, and we do that across the whole of the face. So now I've cleaned up both sides of this finished board. Now we can have a look which is the nicest side. This one's a bit peculiar because it's got a dark stripe. So I've tried planing it off. It's not blue or anything. It's a dark stripe which is just down the edges. And whether I can make a feature of it or whether I'll flip it over and use the other side. It's got a slight dark stain. Normally when you glue these together, you can't see the joint. This is slightly different. I'll have to think about that one. Anyway, that's now round about 4mm, so you can get your measure around the outside. Which around about 4mm or so. We need to get it down to about 3mm. It's going to be some work to be done. So choose the side that is nicest, and then it's just the same deal again. So we're just thinning it down. Take your plane, and then take your these, but this time you'll obviously going to stick a normal pencil in it rather than a white one, and then you're doing the thickness again, planing it down, you're getting it thinner and thinner, very, very carefully. When you get to within about 0.2 of a millimetre, then you start to bring it down using scraper and then also with sandpaper. Now, all the time you're doing this, as I said, you'll be really careful because this is the finished surface now, and it's dents really easily, so just be very careful. So, for instance, when you're messing about with clamps and things, you tip it over, don't just drop the clamp on it because it will dent it. Be really, really careful with it, and slowly bring it down to the right thickness, which is 3mm. So that's what I'll do next. So I'm starting to work this now. You find it's much easier to do than the back was. This is a much softer wood, so you can just again play around with it, feel for the way it likes to be planed. This one seems to like to be planed across, and again, because you join two together, the one on the other side might like to be planed in a different way. You might end up having to go off. Beware if you're going across that you don't chip out on the far side. If you take a big chip out, you'll not be able to get the guitar out of it. So just work it, and then slowly you can bring it down. In fact, I'm going to come down to the other side as well on this one. The thing to be aware of is the corners, because it's very easy to make the corners a bit too thin as you go along. So just gently take a bit at a time, keep measuring it, and go from there. So now I've got this soundboard here down to somewhere near 3mm, sort of 3.1, something like that. So I've done that by, obviously you can go all the way around the edge with this, etc, etc, I said before. So now I'm close, taking a scraper, I'm just basically going to clean up the surface and just make sure there are no more marks left. And this is the good side. I'm going to do this on the good side and the not so good side, just because it makes it nice. You don't want any extra horrible bits on the inside if someone did ever open it up. So just cleaning up the wood and bringing it down that final bit. I'm looking for any sort of extra blemishes. Now remember, this from here on in, this is your good side. This is very delicate, and you should be extremely careful with this from here on in. Any dents you make from now are going to be apparent on the final instrument. So just take care. Don't be dropping this thing and taking chunks, otherwise you'll have to flip it over and use the other side. So just sort of carefully, we're looking for sort of imperfections and blemishes, just to make sure we've chosen the right side. The one there, that's all right. And this will bring it down to the final 3mm that we're looking for. And it's important to get it to close to that 3mm, because if you get it too thick, what's going to happen is that it's going to sound a little bit more sort of tinny. You can get away with it by saying it's sounding bright, but it gets to a point where it's tinny because the wood's very stiff. Now at this point, if you lift it up, nice and clean there. If you lift it up, you can tap it and you can hear it ring, and you get sort of an idea of what it's going to sound like now. A lot of luthiers can tell what that guitar is going to be like from that sound. Not sure I can. I just listen to it and I hear it ring, but it's sounding much better than when it was thick. So we're getting there, and it should be slightly flexible when you sort of do that with it. And that's the kind of thickness that you want, and that's ready now for the next stage. And the next part then now is to take the stencil that we made earlier on out of Perspex, and we're going to use that to mark out where the guitar's going to go. Now, because it's made of Perspex, what you can do is move it up and down. Obviously, you're going to put it on the centre line because you want a matched looking guitar. But on that centre line, you've got quite a way. I've got a good few inches here that I can move it up and down, and you can look through the glass of the Perspex and sort of see what looks like the nicest. Are there any imperfections? Are there any bits on the edge that it's going to touch that don't look right? And you can also flip it both ways and just check for those imperfections and any dents and things that you've already got, and hopefully you can lose those. And eventually you'll come to say, okay, that looks like about the right point for it. So with that, I can line it up now. Remember, if you took a little nick out at the top and bottom, you'll be able to see where the line is. On this one, you can see the line clearly, which is a shame. But on a lot of them, you can't see the line at all. So these lines these nicks are really important to find. So once you line it up, take a bit of care lining it up. You can take a pencil, fairly soft pencil, and you can draw around that template the shape of the guitar. There we are. Around again. There we are. Flip it over. Match up the other side as accurately as you can. So I think it is about there. And draw in the other side. Obviously, you've got to be as careful as you can here because you want it to fit into the mould. There is the shape of the guitar. That's the one that we've gone for. You can just about make that out in the light. And don't cut it out yet, because if you cut it out, it's going to be difficult to do the other stages. The next thing we're going to do is to make a hole in it, and put some struts and that kind of thing on. But for now, that is the blank for the soundboard done. I'll clean it up on the back a little bit when I've done. But there we are. So now it should be the point where you've got a blank for the back, blanks for the sides that are cut down to the right thickness, and we've also got this blank for the soundboard. So really you've got all your constituent parts, and we're ready to start building the actual body of the guitar. The bits we haven't got, obviously, for the neck, we'll do that later. but the most important thing is to get this bit done first. So that will be the subject of the next video. We'll be cutting the hole and getting the struts and things onto the back of this in readiness. So that's that. Hope you like this video. Please subscribe if you did. Otherwise, maybe I'll see you next time.